Hello friends, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and another STAMPtember video for those not aware. Through the month of September, it's STAMPtember at Simon Says Stamp, and a whole bunch of brands collaborate and sponsor the event and create these limited edition stamp sets that are only available while supplies last. So when they sell out, they are no longer restocked. That said, I always link to the actual brands themselves within Simon Says Stamp because there are tons of products to choose from, some similar, some that could be used in substitution of, or some that you've just never seen before that are fabulous and amazing, always. So this video is for the Pretty Pink Posh collab, and I made a couple of Christmas cards with it. And I'll have a link to, like always, the supplies as well as a Pretty Pink Posh brand. And also, stay tuned because Pretty Pink Posh has a release coming soon. I may know things, but I'm not giving anything away. But just stay tuned because they have some fabulous products and some of my favorites. And I did some Spectrum Noir tri-blend coloring. I used one of Pretty Pink Posh's previously released holiday stencil sets that came out last year, I think. And yeah, ink blending and splattering and all the fun things. So if you keep watching, I will show you guys how I made these cards. So this is the Pretty Pink Posh Peace on Earth stamp set. And I took some of Simon's smooth white cardstock and I lined up. There's this big globe earth image and a banner and a couple little doves and a heart and then two outline little leafy sprigs and then two kind of little pine sprigs that I'll end up stamping later in Pine Needles Distress Oxide ink because I think I forgot to film that part, but anyway. I lined up the images and I inked them up and stamped them with Simon Says Stamp's Intense Black ink, a good alcohol marker friendly ink, and then flip the cardstock around, stamp everything again because, yeah, not like there wasn't a whole lot going on. I just decided to do two cards again. Can't help it. It's a habit. Anyway, stamped it and then I used my grid placement mat. I've been showing this in recent videos because I had ordered it a few weeks ago, something. It's just been convenient. I've also shown using just like the back of the packaging that stamps come on. And that's just to protect my cardstock so I can move stamps around to stamp them again without having to clean off the stamp and worry about getting ink smears. So that's what I did so I could stamp the little doves more than once because I planned on using them on the inside of the card as well. So after I was done stamping, I colored and using my Spectrum Noir tri-blend markers right this moment. This is real time coloring. And I always start out slower, which is kind of funny. Like I color even faster than this in real life. But when I'm just starting coloring an image, it's like, you know, just kind of dipping your toes in. It's just like slow. And then once I'm like, okay, I know what I'm doing, go on with it. But then with the magic of video editing, I can super speed this up. Kept it very basic and just simple, really. These didn't take that long to color at all. And the only thing I would change, I would do different shades of blue. And it's just proof. I've been saying this to myself for a while now. I need to do swatches of all these Spectrum Noir tri-blend markers because I've just been going off what the colors on the caps, and that's never accurate with anything, really. But yeah, that's the only thing I'd change because I use like the vintage blue blend or whatever it's called, and it's a little too gray toned for my liking, but I just went with it. I don't have time to redo nothing. And in the end, it's fine. It's still a pretty color. It's just I would have gone a little more blue, but it's fine. It's fine. So colored in the globe, the earth, and then the other coloring was even super extra quick and easy because, you know, white doves. So I just added very, very little bits of light gray to give them a bit of shading. I use the same shades of green. That's the jade green blend for those little sprigs. And then I used reds to do heart, dabbed a tiny bit of like yellow orange on their little beaks, and then repeated the process on the other images, and that was it. So then for the banner, rather than stamp it on the white cardstock, I took some pieces of Simon's Schoolhouse Red cardstock and I used my anti-static powder tool on them. And then I'm going to stamp the banner with clear embossing ink. And then I'm going to rotate this piece of cardstock and stamp it again. And then I'm going to repeat the process on the second piece because I need 4 banners. 2 for the outsides of the cards and then 2 for the insides of the cards. So stamp it, rotate it, ink it up with clear embossing ink, stamp it again. And then I'm going to coat this with Simon's Detail Gold embossing powder. And then once that's coated with the embossing powder, I'm going to repeat this process on that second piece of cardstock. Again, ink it up, stamp it, rotate the cardstock, stamp it a second time, and then coat it with the Detail Gold embossing powder. And then once all these are covered with that embossing powder, then I'm going to melt this with my heat tool. And like always, melt it till it's smooth and shiny and melted and there's no dull grainy areas. And then after I've melted everything with my heat tool, let it cool off for a few seconds. And then I'm lining up one of the sentiments. There's like 3 different little sentiments in the set and they're slightly curved to fit on the banner. So I line it up on the banner and then I'm using my anti-static powder tool again because I'm going to heat emboss these again. So lined up the sentiment and then ink that up, stamp it, rotate it, stamp it again. And then I used a different sentiment for the other banners. And then with these, I'm going to use Simon's Detail White embossing powder so that it just pops a little bit more. So coated those with the embossing powder, melt those with my heat tool, and then I repeated the exact same thing on the second piece. I just used a different sentiment because the one I used for the front of the cards says Joy to the World. And then I used the little sentiment that said Love from Afar on the inside. I thought that was really cute. So I've got all my images and my banners, everything's done. So now I need to create my backgrounds. So I pulled out the Pretty Pink Posh layered winter foliage stencils. I think as I was doing up the links for this, I think at the moment it's sold out. Hopefully they'll get it restocked soon though, because this is a really nice stencil set. I bought this last year to use for my Christmas series and it sold out so quickly. I never even got a chance to use it. And again, if you guys have been watching my videos, you guys know I love my Pretty Pink Posh layered stencil sets. They're some of my favorites to use. So I couldn't resist, even though it was out of stock. I was like, I have to. It's meant to be. So I have 2 Waffle Flower grip mats here because I have all the mats and this just made my life a little easier. So I'm using Simon's Surf cardstock. That'll go on the card front. And then I have what is going to be the inside of my cards on the second mat. And I use a piece of Post-it tape right at the score line just to make sure I don't get ink past the stencil and the score line. And I blend with the first stencil, and that I was using Vintage Photo Distress Oxide ink. And then I transfer the stencil to what will be the inside of the card. And without re-inking my brush and also using much lighter pressure, I just very lightly go over the stencil so I get a much lighter impression. So I'm going to get the pattern on the inside of the card, but it's going to be much lighter so that I can write over it with a pen. And I just keep repeating this process with both card fronts, both card insides, just back, forth. Hence why I've got both of my little grip mats out, because it just, like I said, it just makes my life easier and faster. Always a good thing. So the second stencil, I used Pine Needles Distress Oxide ink. Exact same process. Blended it on the blue background, and then without re-inking the brush, putting it onto the inside of the card base and very, very lightly blending that. And then the final stencil, I used Lumberjack Plaid Distress Oxide ink and blended that onto the blue background. And there's something about these colors together, blue and green and red and a little bit of brown. It's these are just nice Christmas colors in my opinion. So did all of this, did the exact same thing with the insides of the cards. And then once these are done, of course, I'm going to add splatter. So after I'm done blending them, I'm going to use my Gansai Tambi Starry colors because I did the gold heat embossing for those banners. So I wanted to bring a little bit more gold, you know, because you can never have enough. So I'm going to use my Gansai Tambi Starry colors, the gold one. And I'm going to use my fan brush. I put the backgrounds into my splat box. And then I'm going to splatter that all over these backgrounds. And then, because you can also never have too much splatter, in my opinion, I'm also going to use some white gouache. And the white gouache, it goes on more white. Like I watered it down a fair bit. I just put some on my little palette. I got some water on my brush. Mix that up. And it goes on a little more white. It dries back quite a bit. So it's much more subtle, which is fine. Again, can't go wrong with splatter. It just gives, you know, gives that almost snow effect in a sense, but very subtle, which is good. So splatter these backgrounds. I let all that dry. And then when they were dry, I die cut them with the largest of the Pretty Pink Posh wonky stitched rectangles wafer dies. And then after die cutting them, I'm going to adhere these to my card bases with craft tacky glue. And then once these are adhered, I'm going to start adhering all of my little elements from the stamp set. So I'm going to adhere the backgrounds and then decided to just adhere the globe and the banner and whatnot, all of it with just craft tacky glue as well. You could totally pop this up and create a whole lot more dimension. I just wasn't feeling it. It was like, nope, I'm just going to adhere everything. So adhere those down, and then the banner fits perfectly, of course, because that's what it was sized to do, right across, just like so. And then, yeah, I've got the little pine sprigs that I'd stamped with the pine needles, Oxide ink, and the little sprigs that I'd stamped and colored. And I just kind of tucked those in to those little pulled up parts of the banner, the corners, the edges. And then the little doves, those I popped up with just thin foam squares, so that they just kind of fit properly because there's quite a bit of dimension just with all those little die cuts right there. So pop those into place. And then those little individual hearts, I just cut the little foam squares in half so I could stick those onto each of these cards as well. So those will get popped into place. And then the final little banners, I am going to adhere to the insides of the cards. And then that's also why I had stamped the little doves as well, because it was so quick and easy because they didn't require any coloring, really. You know, I added that tiny little bit of gray marker and that was it. It was no extra time for the most part. So it just finished them off and I thought it was really cute. So I stuck those on the inside, and then of course I stuck on some bling. And of course it was the Studio Claudia gold sparkle crystals, because these have been sitting on my desk for the last couple of weeks, and I was like, you guys know, I add gold to practically everything and these just fit the bill. So stuck these, placed them on my cards. Once I was happy with the placement, I'm going to adhere them into place with little dabs of craft tacky glue. And once those are adhered, these cards are complete. So another couple Christmas cards to add to my stash. Always a good thing. And like I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I will have links to everything I used in the description box below the video. If you just expand the description box, I'll have the links to the set with the wafer dies, while supplies last, as well as to the Pretty Pink Posh brand, because they have so many fabulous products, along with everything else I used. So that'll be directly below. You can check that out if you're interested. Thank you all so very much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping and commenting. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in the next one. Bye.